One person arrested, but still many questions as police still search for the abducted 22-year-old Markham man. Wang Jianlu was tasered and forced into a van by 4 masked men on Saturday around 6 p.m. 72 hours later, and still no sign of him. Magna Selassie is live outside of the building where Lu was kidnapped. So, Magna, what are police saying today?
So what we know at this point is that a 35-year-old Toronto man is in police custody, arrested in connection with this kidnapping. But as for how he may possibly be involved, we don't know right now. Police aren't releasing much information on that front. We also know that charges have yet to be laid. Now, meanwhile, the victim is still missing. Wang Jianlu was in the underground parking of his building when he was tased and dragged into a van. We're learning more about the victim today. Cops confirmed that he drove a Lamborghini, a Rolls Royce, and that he had just parked his Range Rover when this happened. Now, police could not confirm the validity of this Instagram page that shows those 3 vehicles. But today, the black vehicle was still in the garage. CBC has documents on the Range Rover that show Lu's name listed. As of yesterday, there is a lien registered on the vehicle. We spoke to residents of the building, and they say high-end vehicles are here all the time.
I've seen the Lamborghini downstairs. Like right when the posting was like, then my parents were like, "Oh, now we know who that guy is. He's the guy with that nice car." But it is a little bit concerning in that, I mean, I have a remote to get in and everything, but then.
Okay. As for the arrest, we know that police have not released the name of the person in custody. And as we said, charges haven't been laid as of yet. But the search is continuing for the other suspects and the victim. We're also hearing more about the victim's family. Originally, the family is from China. Here's more from Constable Andy Pattenton.
We have been in touch with family. They did arrive yesterday, and our investigators and officers had a chance to speak with his family. Unfortunately, they do not want to speak to media, and they're asking for their privacy to be respected at this point in time. They're obviously very concerned for Mr. Lu's well-being, as are we. So everything we're doing to try and find him right now, we're bringing all of our available resources, and we're hoping that somebody might have some information.
Now, I also asked him whether the family, whether there was a ransom request made of the family. He says that they have not heard from Lu or any of the other, any of the suspects at this point. We also, there's a statement from the Chinese consulate that is urging law enforcement to do all they can to find Lu. Dwight?
Yeah, disturbing case here. Thank you for that, Magda.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one.
He did this all in the name of self-promotion. This is a whitewash of justice.
The Jussie Smollett saga takes yet another turn. He had been accused of lying to police, of orchestrating a fake attack by 2 men who shouted racial and homophobic slurs. Now, all charges against the actor have been dropped, and Chicago's police chief and mayor are not holding back. We'll have more on that coming up in about 10 minutes. And a developing story tonight from the Toronto Police Services Board meeting. The review into how police handle missing persons investigations will now be expanded to include the victims of serial killer Bruce McArthur. Farmer Morelli joins us live now from police headquarters in Farah. This means there will be no more restrictions on what this review can look at.
That's correct, Dwight. This independent review now has the freedom to look at just how police handled the investigations into Bruce McArthur's victims when they went missing. And this is in a way that we have never seen before. There have been so many questions about the way police handled these cases, including whether key signs were missed along the way because these men disappeared from Toronto's gay village. Last September, a review was started, an independent review into how police handle missing persons cases in general, but the McArthur files were not included in that review, and there was a lot of criticism for that. And the reason why was because the McArthur case was still proceeding through the courts, and there was a fear that it might jeopardize his right to a fair trial. But as we know, in January, McArthur pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder, and almost immediately after that, the retired judge who was leading this review, asked that the review extended scope to include McArthur's victims. victims. And today, that brings us to today, at the Toronto Police Services Board meeting, the board unanimously voted in favor of supporting that call to extend the scope of this review. And what that'll effectively do is put a microscope on police's actions involving the victims of Bruce McArthur. We had a chance to speak to both Mark Saunders, the chief of police, as well as Mayor John Tory about why they made that decision.
Responsible for community safety. So anytime that there's a segment of the community that has a concern that maybe they're being policed differently, I have issues with that. Anytime that there's a fragment with any community, any segment of any community, I have concerns with that. So if this is a process or a tool that will help enhance or encourage the relationship building, then it's a good day for all of us.
It's entirely appropriate we should now look at not just the issue of missing persons, which is very important in and of itself, and how people are treated who report people missing, but also the criminal investigation in order to make sure that Justice Epstein can provide whatever answers she comes up with that hopefully will satisfy the community.
Farah, you've already mentioned the fact that community advocates have been calling for this. So what are some of them saying today?
Well, the people I spoke to today are pleased. They're calling this a victory of sorts. And keep in mind that some people are still calling or want to see a public inquiry, but we know from the Attorney General of Ontario that that is not going to happen. Nonetheless, they say they are happy to see that this review will now look at the McArthur cases, and they're optimistic that they will be getting some of the answers they're looking for.
Really important, and it's exciting that it's actually going to be included, and it also gives us an opportunity to give some of those answers to the families and the friends in particular, but also the community to find ways to help them move on and help them close this particular chapter.
Now, Dwight, we also heard from the retired judge who is leading this review, that is Gloria Epstein. She issued a statement saying that she will now be able to ask better questions and dig deeper into this investigation now that she has these powers. This review was supposed to wrap by April 2020. That's now been extended to January 2021, and we're expected to learn more details of what that will look like when it comes to community consultation in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Farah. MPP Randy Hillier is back at Queen's Park today for the first time since Premier Doug Ford kicked him out of the PC caucus.
There is an understanding by many people down here in Queen's Park that there is a culture of fear and intimidation, and different people respond to that in different ways.
Hillier told a news conference Ford's chief of staff, Dean French, obstructed him from representing his constituents, but he declined to talk about allegations he has made about illegal lobbying involving some of Ford's closest advisors.
He's going to drag this out, unfortunately, and I don't want to have to come out here every time he holds a press conference and says nothing. So I hope that's not going to be what Randy does here.
That was a response late this afternoon from Ford's party. Government House Leader Todd Smith saying Hillier hasn't presented any evidence to back up his claims. The NDP is asking for an investigation into a progressive conservative fundraising event. The New Democrats are questioning whether Doug Ford's party broke the law by allowing corporations to pay for tickets. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the story.
Premier Doug Ford calls it the biggest fundraising event in Ontario history. His dinner speech brought in at least $3 million to the Progressive Conservative Party in one night last month.
Can the Premier tell us?
Now the NDP is raising doubts that all the donations were legal.
So will the Premier agree that serious concerns like these deserve a thorough investigation?
It's against the law for corporations or unions to cover the cost of donations to any party in Ontario. Tickets to Ford's dinner cost $1,250 a plate. Andrea Horvath is questioning whether everybody paid their own way or if companies ponied up. She produces a letter she's written asking Elections Ontario to investigate and sends it across the aisle, urging Ford to sign it too.
Thank you.
Premier insists he has nothing to hide, Speaker. Then why won't he put his name on the dotted line and join us in calling for a full and complete investigation by Elections Ontario?
You can't help but laugh in the chamber. Yeah. And you listen to the rhetoric. I just can't believe it. Mr. Speaker, we're focused again on making sure that we take care of the grassroots people. And they don't need access to Doug Ford. They call me on my cell phone. I get hundreds of calls a day. Yep. I return their phone calls. I meet these people at these $25 a night spaghetti dinners, and you can tell I haven't missed too many spaghetti dinners, Mr. Speaker.
The PCs have some pretty big donors too. More than 2,000 people have already given the party more than $1,000 each this year.
The thing that's disturbing for us is that there are allegations out there that they use lobbyists to sell tickets to their fundraising event.
I'm confident that that our fundraisers have been completely above board, and we're very proud of the work that we've done with fundraising so far in our first 8 months, and have been raising a lot of money.
The Ford government tweaked the fundraising laws last year. They eliminated a rule that had forced people to sign a statement swearing that their political donation came from their own money, not from anyone else's. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
With more and more homeowners bracing for flooded basements every time there's a major storm, the federal government is now promising millions in funding to help protect homes across the GTA. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly joins us live with the details now. And Lauren, where is that money going exactly?
Well, 4 GTA municipalities have been earmarked for this new federal funding for flood prevention. And that's good news here in Toronto, where the ice is melting and spring showers are on the way. In recent years, Toronto has endured soggy streets, flooded basements, and even an underwater streetcar.
Which was shocking. To believe that in the heart of Toronto we would have streetcar which would be flooded, we decided we need to take action.
The federal government is now promising $150 million to protect GTA communities from future floods.
We know that disaster mitigation is one of the greatest challenges that we're facing.
Nearly $40 million is earmarked for a new sewer system in Midtown Toronto.
The City of Toronto has committed nearly $83 million to this very same capital infrastructure project.
The lines will start west of Bathurst near Glen Park and Dalemount Avenues and wind south for 3 kilometers. The new system will flow directly into this park on Chaplin Crescent, into a new tank that's going to be built under my feet. A few blocks away on this hilly street, one resident is hoping the project will prevent her basement from being flooded for a second time. So just how high was the water level?
I'd say approximately something like here, whatever. Like a sizable amount where you walked in, you were walking in water.
But she also questions if a new sewer system will be enough.
It's a hill at the end of the day. It's a geographical landmark. It's the way it works, so I don't really see how they're going to interfere with that.
Midtown is just one neighborhood impacted by changing weather, and some worry the damage will keep getting worse.
Sadly, these types of investments are going to be necessary. Climate change means we have to build better flood protections.
One councillor is even calling on the city to explore taking legal action against oil companies that contribute to the changing climate.
After decades of damage and release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that have resulted in a changing climate, more severe storms with greater regularity, that there are serious consequences to the costs to governments.
Now, Councillor Mike Layton's motion is heading to City Council tomorrow, and as we've seen by everything that happened today, it's just one piece of this big conversation on how to fight climate change. Dwight?
And with this conversation, like any political debate, not everyone's on the same page with this, Lauren.
That's right, actually. Jason Kenney, who's leader of the United Conservative Party in Alberta, he actually sent a letter to Mayor John Tory slamming Layton's motion. He says that targeting oil companies would be damaging to Canada's economy. Back to you.
Thank you, Lauren. And as Lauren mentioned, it wasn't just Toronto getting money from the feds today. Municipalities across the GTA are also getting help to manage extreme weather. York Region will get $48 million for the York-Durham Sewage System Force Main Twinning Project. Markham will get just over $48 million for a flood control project, and Vaughan will receive $16 million for the Vaughan Stormwater Flood Mitigation projects. I'm going to guess today and say that we were below seasonal because it felt a little chilly out there today, no?
Yeah, it was a little bit chilly, but all that sunshine, Dwight, a couple degrees below seasonal.
Glass half full.
Yeah, there you go. You know what? It's always full, even if it's half water. And and the rest air. It's full.
Stop it.
Okay, I will. Yeah, we were just around 4 degrees today, and average at this time of year is 6.4. So Dwight, quite right, little bit below. That's okay. We're going to go above as we head into tomorrow, and one of the reasons is going to be the winds, and that's why I want to bring your attention here. We're seeing those winds. Okay, Toronto, you see the exception here with that southerly flow coming off the lake, but otherwise we've got this northwesterly flow, a little more westerly for Oshawa. They're fairly light in terms of what we're seeing. There'll be a little bit of a wind chill tonight in terms of you can knock a degree or two off when the temperatures fall. Right now it's 2 degrees, 3 in Markham, 2 in Mississauga. But those winds are going to shift around more southerly tomorrow, and that's what's going to help with our temperature going above seasonal. Satellite and radar imagery shows us a clear picture, meaning we still have high pressure in place. There'll be a little bit of cloud cover that's going to go through in the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, but still mostly sunny even in the morning. In the afternoon, we'll see that dissipate, and the sun shining with those southerly winds means that temperature going maybe to double digits. I'm going just below that. But I do want you to know that Wednesday night clouds move in, and Thursday, that's when we're going to see some showers developing as well. And then we'll even take a peek at the weekend a little bit later in the show. But overnight tonight, -4, knock a few degrees off. And there's your high tomorrow, 9 degrees, Dwight, above seasonal.
I hope we hit it. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
The TTC driver who slammed this bus into 2 homes in Scarborough last week has been charged. The crash happened last Thursday around 1:35 a.m. at the corner of Grackle Trail and Oasis Boulevard. No one was injured. The driver has now been charged with careless driving. A spokesperson for the TTC says the driver is currently not operating a TTC vehicle. No word on if the driver has been suspended or will be fired. He's the man usually behind the camera bringing you incredible video of the GTA's overnight news. And still ahead, I sit down with videographer Tony Smythe about his more than a decade on the night shift. What is it like to be heading into work when everybody else is heading to bed?
Well, first thing, the most important thing is there's no traffic. So that's probably that's the biggest bonus of the night shift.
A surprising new twist in the case of Empire actor Jussie Smollett. He had been accused of staging a fake hate crime in January. Well, today, prosecutors in Chicago dropped all charges against him. Yelena Adzik explains.
It's a decision that has raised more questions than it has answered. After receiving word that all criminal charges have been dropped against him, actor Jussie Smollett had this to say.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one. I would not be my mother's son if I was capable of one drop of what I've been accused of. This has been an incredibly difficult time, honestly one of the worst of my entire life. But I am a man of faith, and I'm a man that has knowledge of my history, and I would not bring my family, our lives, or the movement through a fire like this. I just wouldn't.
The story took another twist when a press conference was held by the Chicago Police Department and Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who was openly incensed about the prosecutor's decision to drop charges against Smollett.
This is an unbelievable, not just whitewash of justice, this is a person now who's been let off scot-free with no sense of accountability of the moral and ethical wrong of his actions.
It's noteworthy that Smollett gave up the $10,000 he posted for bail. When his attorney was asked why he did that, here's the reason she gave.
Jussie voluntarily agreed to the forfeiture of the bond money. That decision was made so that he could go on with his life and get this over with and not have to fight and not have to continue with all of the disruption to his career.
But does he have a career to go back to? Amidst the controversy, his final scenes of the Empire TV series season were edited out. A week ago, castmates openly shared their feelings of being confused and hurt by the situation, including director Lee Daniels.
We have, me and my cast have experienced pain and anger and sadness and frustration, and really don't know how to deal with it.
For now, it seems the confusion over what really happened and who exactly is responsible continues. Yelena Adzik, CBC News, Toronto.
One of these guns was just taken off the streets of Peel region. It's part of one of the largest busts in the history of Peel Police. More on Project Baron coming up next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
These guns were seized in one of the biggest single firearm seizures in Peel Regional Police history.
Some of the guns seized in Project Baron aren't what police are used to seeing on our streets. They've been modified to do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. Linda Ward has more now on this investigation.
Constable Trevor Campbell, can you take us through what these guns are that you found, and how scary some of them are?
As most of the firearms here seized by the officers throughout the investigation, some are non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited handguns, shotguns, and rifles. Some of them have been altered.
So this is a high-capacity magazine. It's capable of holding 50 rounds. It can be put into a handgun. If the handgun is an automatic, fully automatic handgun, is capable of rapidly firing the 50 rounds, such as what you saw in the video earlier. There's absolutely no reason for an individual to have this unless they're connected to criminality. This will cause mass casualties if used in an unlawful way.
When you see something like this during a seizure, how alarming is that for police?
It's very scary. It should be scary to the citizens of Peel and outside everybody, as a matter of fact. There's no need for anyone to have this in their possession. It's not made for hunting. It's made for, in my opinion, the sport of hunting people.
Also seized as part of Project Barron, a quantity of drugs worth $1.2 million on the street, about 1,500 rounds of ammunition and a bulletproof vest, something that speaks to the lifestyle of the accused. 35-year-old Salim Talk of Brampton was arrested last Thursday. He faces more than 60 firearms and drugs-related charges. The mayors of Brampton and Mississauga were on hand for today's press conference.
I'm grateful of the work that they have done to eliminate gun violence on our streets and help eliminate all these illegal guns that we understand are being moved around to commit various different crimes.
This seizure in Brampton is a step towards peace of mind and safety. $1.2 million in guns and drugs that could have wreaked havoc in the community.
But this investigation is far from over. Police are now trying to figure out just where these guns and drugs came from and how the accused allegedly got them in the first place. Linda Ward, CBC News, Mississauga.
And the province says it is taking aim at guns and gangs by announcing 4 new justice facilities across the province.
This is a new model of intervention in Ontario, but it has been proven successful in places like New York and Illinois. Previous and existing approaches to addressing these issues have, in many cases, failed to protect young people in our communities. Justice partners work side by side with on-site health, housing, employment, and social services to help break the cycle of offending.
The facilities are part of the province's second phase in fighting guns and gangs. There will be 2 justice centers in Toronto and 2 others in Kenora and London. The centers will bring together the justice system with prevention and intervention supports. The province also announced a guns and gang support unit assisting in major investigations across Ontario, as well as a number of other crime prevention initiatives.
The death toll across the 3 countries is at least 700.
I would like to know that if I was in the same situation, that other countries and other people would want to come and would help me.
The UN is sounding the alarm after 3 southern African nations were ravaged by a deadly cyclone. Coming up next, how Canadians are preparing to do their part to help.
Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi have suffered one of the worst weather-related catastrophes in the history of Africa.
Dire words from the head of the United Nations today as Cyclone Idai ravaged a trio of southern African countries more than a week ago. It left some 700 people dead, flattened homes, and caused massive flooding. The UN says it's yet another alarm bell about the dangers of climate change. Relief agencies are raising warnings about the possibility of malaria and cholera outbreaks in Mozambique. It's estimated almost 2 million people in the southern African country have been affected by the cyclone. A Red Cross team from Canada with 24 doctors, nurses, and mental health counselors is about to head to the port city of Beirut. The team got a briefing in Ottawa today, and our David Thornton was there.
I want to take you inside the Red Cross Emergency Operations Center. Just come take a walk with me. Over here, we have a team of Red Cross medical staff, and they're getting ready to be deployed to Mozambique to address the needs of the people on the ground who are dealing with this disaster. And over here, we have all the logistics that this team is going to need, all the things that they need to know when they are being deployed. Now, right now, what's happening is that they're undergoing an emergency briefing right now. More details about what they need to know. We spoke with a couple of the medical staff that are going to be going to Mozambique, and also the operations lead.
To me, I didn't really think twice. I don't really hesitate with these kind of things because my focus is really on the people and the people on the ground, because I would like to know that if I was in the same situation, that other countries and other people would want to come and would help me.
The main hospital that's been affected, to give you an example, they've had 7 operating theaters. This is where the surgeries are performed. 6 of those are completely non-functional anymore, and the one that's working only is partially working. So we know that surgical needs are huge.
So this team that you see will be deployed in Mozambique for about a month. Altogether, the Red Cross Mobile Hospital will be set up in the country for about 4 months. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now to the arrival of 2 refugees last night in Canada. This is Vanessa Rodell and her daughter as they arrived in Toronto as refugees from Hong Kong. Their long journey here, all the more unusual because it involved former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. Snowden carried out the biggest leak of top-secret documents in history. To some, a hero for revealing the scale of government surveillance. To others, a traitor. But Snowden might never have escaped to Russia without the help of people like Vanessa Rodell. Katie Simpson has her story.
In these quiet moments, Vanessa Rodell indulges in relief, knowing finally she and her daughter are going to be safe.
When I accepted in Canada, I'm really so much, I barely couldn't, I cannot sleep for so many days, and I cannot believe. And I say, oh, thank you so much for that.
In 2013, Rodell used her small apartment to hide American whistleblower Edward Snowden. His Canadian lawyer asked Rodell and 2 other migrants living in Hong Kong to offer shelter at a time when Snowden was the most wanted man in the world. They became known as Snowden's Angels.
They opened their door to me, and they didn't ask. They didn't care what happened to me. They knew what it was like to be hunted, to be chased, to be retaliated against.
When authorities in Hong Kong found out Rodell helped Snowden, she says her social assistance ended and her daughter was banned from school, fearing she would be deported to her native Philippines, where she says her life would be in danger. A group of Canadian lawyers offered to privately sponsor her as a refugee. The lawyers now want Canada to quickly grant asylum to the other migrants involved, including a family of 4 that also harbored Snowden.
It's absolutely distressful for them. They live in fear and anxiety. They don't know if they have a future.
For the first time in their lives, Vanessa and her daughter are planning a future. 7-year-old Kiana wants a puppy and to see some wildlife.
I will be a wolf protector and protect wolves from people who keep hunting them.
She looks forward to playing in the snow when her new life finally begins. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Liberal majority on the Parliamentary Ethics Committee has defeated an opposition motion to launch another probe into the SNC Labland matter.
It's premature because we haven't heard all the information that is being provided to justice. That we should hear before we make any determination of how we proceed.
So I agree with you, committees aren't the best place, but it's the only place we currently have to be able to have a forum, to create space for people to be able to speak who very publicly indicated that they would like the opportunity to do so.
The 10-member committee is chaired by a Conservative, and it was Conservatives and New Democrats pushing to hear from Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott. But both resigned from the Trudeau cabinet amid questions about possible political interference in the criminal case against SNC-Lavalin. The committee's Liberal vice chair says his committee doesn't have the teeth to undertake a meaningful study of the issue. The Justice Committee has already heard testimony from Wilson-Raybould and several others. Now, the Independent Ethics Commissioner is also examining the affair. The current gloom over Canada's economy has one bright spot: mortgage rates are dropping. Fixed-rate mortgages have tumbled in recent weeks. They're tied to declining yields on 5-year government bonds, which banks and other lenders depend on. While it may be positive for anyone shopping for a mortgage, it's not great for the economy. In the long term, changes in the bond market, both here and in the U.S., could signal a coming recession. Last night, Richmond Hill City Council was supposed to vote on whether to acknowledge Indigenous land before every meeting. But not only did Council decided to not vote on that issue, they voted on something else entirely.
The ruling of the chair is not upheld, and the amendment is in order. Okay, please.
You're not representing your people at all.
Excuse us. Excuse us, please.
I'm amazed. I can't, like, this was obviously choreographed. I can't believe that we would spend all this time. We asked for citizen input. We got citizen input. They told us what they wanted. This has nothing, Mr. Mayor, to do with the original motion, and it's unbelievable.
Our council put forward an amendment to the original motion stating that they should be teaching city staff more about Indigenous issues instead. Councillors voted in favor of that amendment 5-4, but some councillors are arguing while education is important, the new motion missed the point entirely.
We had more citizens out to this meeting and writing letters and participating in a very meaningful way, spoke very eloquently about this. It was clear that that's what the citizens in Richmond Hill are wanting, and that's not what they got. I can certainly understand why they would be disappointed.
And I think although some people may think that they didn't get the motion initially, the initial motion it wasn't as strong as the motion that we have now.
Richmond Hill Council would have joined the City of Toronto, which opens its council meetings with a land acknowledgement. So does the York School Board.
16 young hockey players from Pond Inlet, Nunavut, have traveled more than 3,000 kilometers and have been paired up with 16 Toronto area hockey players. They're showing them the sights and sounds of the big city and even squeezing in a little hockey. I'm Greg Ross. I'll have their story coming up.
Mass shooting on the Danforth, a police officer killed by a man driving a snowplow. Toronto's streets in the dead of night can be a chaotic place, and for many, the moments that stand out in our city's recent history. Tony Smythe has been there. For the last 11 years, Tony has worked our overnight as the videographer, and now he's signing off from CBC Toronto. But before he leaves, I spoke with him about life on the graveyard shift. What is it like to be heading into work but everybody else is heading to bed?
Well, first thing, the most important thing is there's no traffic. So that's probably
comes in handy.
That's the biggest bonus of the night shift. But for me, I basically jump in my van, in the news van. I turn on 8 police, or well, they used to scan the police, but now they scan basically EMS, fire, OPP. The local police now are all encrypted. But I get in my van, I turn everything on, and I listen, and that's it. I drive around, I listen, I wait, and then when we hear the magic words, we go to where the news is, and we, gather the video.
Are there stories or shoots over your time roving the city that have really stuck with you, though? Are there some stories out there?
Yeah, there is. Sergeant Ryan Russell, when he was hit by the snowplow.
Yep.
I was right around the corner, basically. I started towards the call when it was a stolen snowplow that was hitting cars. and when I got on scene, he was lying down on the ground. So that was one of the worst ones. It was a very sad day. I've covered like hundreds, if not thousands, of shootings, stabbings, and car crashes and the likes, right? But you know, some people might say, oh, he's being kind of flippant about the stuff that he covers.
No.
But look, I can't be sad for everybody that I
and you see a lot of it over
right?
and
Because if
over
I was sad
and
for
over
everybody,
again,
you know,
you'd be a really sad
Yeah, it
person.
would be.
Yeah. And it does make you sad sometimes, some of the stuff we get to see close up. You've got quite the following on social media.
You know, it's funny because a lot of people follow me, but there was probably only about 20 people that actually would talk to me like every day. It wasn't until I actually said on Twitter, I'm done, I'm moving on to CBC Windsor, that I was actually surprised because there was a huge outpouring of people.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, where did all these people come from? But apparently they were all just kind of enjoying the feed, right, sort of thing. So that was good. It made me feel good.
How has the relationship changed with the first responders out there? I remember in my early days, there was more of a relationship sometimes, and over the years, that seems to have changed quite a bit.
Like I'm 30 years now in TV, and I remember we used to get calls from homicide guys that would say, go to this address, be outside at 11:30, and you'd go there, and sure enough, here they'd come with somebody in cuffs,
or something,
right? But that stuff just doesn't happen anymore. No. It's just, it's just a no-go. So now you make friends with cops, and if you see them and you're friendly with them, sometimes they'll point you in the right direction. Yeah. But for the most part, I think it's not like it used to be. And certainly with the EMS people, there's so much privacy concerns now that they just kind of keep to themselves. Firefighters are always nice, though.
Yes, that's true. The firefighters are still really cool out there. What kept you going, though? Is it just the importance of the job you felt?
The money. No, I'm just kidding. No, you know what? It's a good gig, right? We're privileged. We get to go out. Yes. We get to see what's going on. To a lot of things. Right? And I got to tell you, the one thing that I've said when I always look at the big picture was that I could always find gratitude for what was going on in my life when I would see how other people were struggling, right? Yeah. Because I'd always be like, I'm so lucky. Like the things that are happening to people, bad stuff happens to people. This job
teaches you how lucky you really are. On behalf of the viewers, we thank you for the time you put in overnight.
Thanks to CBC Toronto.
It's been a great run, buddy. We're gonna miss you. But our loss is CBC Windsor's gain, and I'm sure you'll be sending us some stuff from out there too, man. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, buddy. And Colette, it was good. We had a little send-off for him here in the newsroom. It's nice to see him dayside because we only see him overnight. And at least down in Windsor, it'll be a little warmer for him down there because there's a couple of degrees warmer usually in Windsor. So
you're right about that. Yeah. Tomorrow they're going to 11 degrees. We're not quite hitting that, but you know what? Yeah, he's going to be a great mentor to a lot of folks down in that newsroom. They are going to be lucky to have him, and it is our loss. Just having a look at our almanac here in terms of record high, 20.3 degrees back in 2007. By the way, Windsor's record for this day in 2007 was 26.6. Our average high is just over 6 degrees and our average low at -3. So now we can kind of take a look forward and see how things are stacking up. We'll start though with just the current temperatures out there where it's 2 degrees in Toronto, but it's double that in Hamilton at 4 and Barrie. Well, you can cut it in half, 1 degree there with those current readings. The wind chill knocks a few degrees off, but the winds aren't that strong. Still kind of a northwesterly flow. That's going to turn around to the south tomorrow, and that's going to help push those temperatures up. High pressure still in place. Now, tonight we'll see a little bit of light cloud cover come through in the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, so we'll call it mostly sunny into the morning, and then a lot of sunshine really into the afternoon hours with the southwesterly winds. The temperature soaring almost to double digits. They'll get that into southwestern Ontario, but it's kind of the tale of two ridges. So high pressure is what we consider a ridge. That's that dome of air, and it's very stable. It's moving off, leaving us Wednesday night, allowing overnight the clouds to move in. And then on Thursday, we do have a disturbance that's going to push through and bring some showers. They should be pretty scattered in nature, though, in terms of what we'll see. A lot of cloud cover, but scattered showers. And then another ridge is going to nose its way in here. But it will be interesting. I think it'll give us some breaks into Friday, so we get another quiet day. But late Friday into Saturday, some of this moisture back to the south of us is going to push back through. I'll illustrate that a little better on the 5-day forecast because you'll see some of the rain coming into the weekend forecast. Overnight tonight, a look at your lows. And again, the wind chill not a big factor on top of that. So tomorrow morning, not too bad. And tomorrow afternoon, definitely not bad at all. As we see some of these readings, somebody may peak at 10 degrees, but I'm going with 9 degrees for the city in terms of our high tomorrow afternoon with that sunshine. It helps us get over the hump of hump day, but then Thursday, there come the showers. The wind's getting breezier from the southwest, so some of those gusts towards 40 kilometers an hour. Still mild Friday in between those systems, and then more moderate rain coming in into Saturday. Second half of the weekend looks drier, but we are going to see those temperatures falling off a little bit then, Dwight.
And we're not going to complain about the rain because we love the flowers, and we need them to spring up right now.
You're so positive. See, I love that about you.
You're training me, Colette. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the second year in a row, the Mimico Minor Hockey Association has paired up 16 of their players with 16 players from Nunavut. They're here in Toronto for 8 days, and in a few weeks, they'll be together again up north. Hockey is the bond that is bringing these young people together, but as Greg Ross tells us, most of the excitement is happening off the ice.
All right, everybody, let's go for a skate. For these kids, hockey is the common denominator. But get them off the ice and they'll tell you just how different their lives are.
It's a lot bigger here.
Miranda Hominick is among 16 kids who have made the trip from Pond Inlet, Nunavut. They've been paired up with 16 Toronto area kids for 8 exciting days in the big city. What's your favorite part so far of your trip to Toronto?
Shopping.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. They're going to a Blue Jays game. They'll go up the CN Tower, and this past Saturday, they went to their first Toronto Maple Leafs game together.
If you wanted to say hello to everybody watching back home in Nunavut.
Hi.
Hominick's family watched at home as she was interviewed on Hockey Night in Canada.
They were surprised and happy to see me on TV.
Chris Zarka is one of the organizers who put this exchange together.
It's not cheap, but there's an amazing program called Experiences Canada. And they pretty much cover your flights and a lot of other stuff.
He says the kids from both cities also fundraise for months, all for an opportunity to experience a different culture.
A few days ago, we went on a walk and we saw a squirrel. So Stella saw a squirrel for the first time, and I thought that was very cool.
You had never seen a squirrel before?
Yes, I've never seen it before.
They're also trying food they've never tasted before. You had a Big Mac for the first time in Toronto.
It was delicious.
In a few weeks, the roles will be reversed when they meet again in Pond Inlet, and it will be the Toronto kids trying new foods and seeing exotic animals.
Seals, narwhals, polar bears.
They go hunting for whales.
I've never tried whales before, so I'll have that. I don't
Want to try whale when he goes there.
Whale skin is yummy.
While most of the excitement seems to be happening off the ice, the focus of this exchange really is the hockey. And this practice here today is one of 4 times that these kids will be on the ice together throughout the 8 days. Ready? Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
He was nicknamed Baby Elvis for his wonderful mane of hair, but this young boy has a special form of cancer. The only treatment is in Boston. Why his mom can't join him for the possible life-saving procedures next. A family in Newfoundland is dealing with a heart-wrenching dilemma. Their infant son has brain cancer and needs special treatment in the U.S., but the little boy's mother will not be able to go with him. Ryan Cook explains why.
Elias Fakiri was born with a head full of hair, so much that the hospital staff called him Baby Elvis. He was the second son born in the same year for the Fakiri family, originally from Afghanistan.
The younger one is like, his health is not, so good, because I found at the age of 10 months, he was diagnosed with a cancer, brain cancer.
When he was 10 months old, Elias had a seizure. Scans revealed a brain tumor. Emergency surgery removed much of the tumor. Chemo took care of some more. Now he needs a special radiation treatment, only available in Boston and starting in May. But there's a problem. His mother, Sajia, is not a Canadian citizen. That means no passport. She's been in the country long enough to qualify, but one requirement for citizenship is proficiency in English or French. Sajia hasn't reached that level yet. Through her husband, I asked how it would feel to be away from her son for those 3 weeks in May.
Even a second is too much for her.
When Elias cries in the hospital, only his mother can stop him. Without her in Boston, they're worried his tears won't turn to smiles this quickly. They're worried the added stress of separation could devastate him.
And Elias, without his mother, he cannot make it.
Sajia is a permanent resident of Canada, which means she can travel to the United States if she applies for a U.S. visitor's visa. But that process can take months, and the family is worried they just don't have time. The family hopes that someone can intervene and waive the language proficiency test so she can get citizenship. If she gets citizenship, she can get a passport and be with her boy in Boston. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
The first ever all-female spacewalk has been scrubbed. The reason why, coming up next. It was called a giant leap for mankind when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon 50 years ago, and it turns out the declaration remains true. NASA seems to be struggling to get women into space suits. The space agency has canceled its first ever all-female spacewalk. Astronauts Christina Cook and Anne McLean were supposed to walk out of the International Space Station on Friday, making history as the first female pair to do it. But today, the agency discovered it only has one spacesuit that fits the women. So now a male astronaut has to go out instead. Yes, NASA, we need to fix that. So they're both going to get to walk, just not together. It would have been kind of cool for them to do it together.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I just can imagine how expensive those suits
Yes,
are. So
yes,
I
and that's
see,
part of
but
it.
come on.
We can fix that,
Let's
NASA.
make that happen.
Okay, what are we making happen for us tomorrow, caller?
Lots of good things.
All right, look
yeah,
at that.
Yeah.
Glad I asked.
Get ready for this one. Yeah, we've got sunshine on tap for tomorrow. The temperature looking really nice as well. So overnight tonight, it does drop to -4. A little bit of a wind chill. It's not a big deal. The winds aren't that strong. They turn around more southerly tomorrow. We'll see a little bit of cloud early in the day, and then otherwise it's mostly sunny skies that we're talking about, and that's why these temperatures going to the high single digits. We could see some areas around the GTA spike even at 10, at double digits. It's possible.
I've already started ditching the jacket in the car as I walk from the garage to the station.
You're brave.
I'm good, man. It's all good. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for watching tonight. That is our show. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight at 11. Colin and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 6. Have a great night, everybody.